I did. And we're live. Go.
All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is RAGIN with, and we've got a special guest tonight. It is a romance author, McKayla Jade, episode 21. This is RAGIN with. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, hit that subscribe button while you are watching. You ready for this intro?
Do it.
All right, here we go.
RAGIN.
All right, everybody. Like I said, we've got a special guest tonight. It is McKayla Jade. She is the author of at least four romance novels that we know of. Episode 21, Raging With. Let me drop the card here. McKayla.
Hey.
Hi. So we stole you from Uncle Carl's green room right now, and we'll give you back in about an hour. But introduce yourself for those who do not know who you are.
I am an author of historical paranormal romance. I made my own genre because no one else had it. Yeah. So think King Arthur with a twist, but some dark twist. Anything historical is my jam. I write all of it. The only stuff that I've published right now, though, is like medieval times sort of thing.
Nice.
I've written all my life. It's just something that, you know how you get a hobby and like you'll get thousands of hobbies and like they'll die off. This never died off. This was always something that I did. I'd write poems, I'd write stories, I'd write articles. This never died. And as flighty as I am with my interest, this is what stuck. So that's how I knew that this is what I need to be doing. So I started 4 years ago and figured out how to do it.
You know, that is pretty amazing. 4 years ago, 4 books, at least 4 books, not including all of the other writing that you do. At what point did you say, this is the lane that I chose? This is where I'm meant to be?
When every author you ever talk to and every author interview you ever see, they say, don't worry about rejection. I can paper a wall with all the rejection letters I've gotten. That's like the first advice they ever give you. I didn't get a rejection letter. My first book, Warrior's Secret, went to a publisher. And it was because I met an author. She had never read my book before. I gave her the pitch and she says, why don't you submit it to my publisher? And I was like, okay, fine. I know how to deal with no. I've heard no all my life. Mm-hmm. I sent it in and like 2 months later, they were like, yes, we want the rest of this book. Where is it?
Wow. You go, girl.
I figured I'd get the rejection letter, you know.
Right. So how far into the book were you when they were like, yeah, send me the manuscript?
It had been done for 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I hid it in a closet for that long. I wrote it when I was like 13, 14. I started writing it. And it was the book. That's why in the dedication of Secret, it says, to my husband, the book is done. I promise. Because I would put it away and I would work on it. And I would edit a little bit and I would add to the story and then I would put it away. And by put it away, I mean put it away for years. Or months, and then I'd be like, I think I want to work on my book this weekend, and so I'd work on it some, and yeah, that's how it started. And then my sister-in-law read it, and she said, why the hell is this not published? Well, first of all, I don't have a clue on how to do that, and second, it's not that good. everybody that's read it since then has been like, oh my God, where's the second book? I'm like, what? Second book? What? So that's how second book and third book, and now there's about 8 books in the works.
Yeah.
So far.
And with this, with the way that you're going now, I mean, you've got, it sounds like you've kind of got this fine oiled machine where you're churning out books. In fact, I was listening to your motivational morning and you said, in fact, I think that was today, I woke up with the idea for another story.
It wasn't necessarily that I woke up with it. I've been kind of plotting and planning and trying to figure out just how this is going to work, how it's going to fit. Because each of my books has to be a standalone as well as part of the series. And I figured it out. I've got it. And then just today, while I was at work, I thought about a different twist. And I went, well, what if I take this character and I put it here? Shit, that works. So again, today, and that's how all my stories work. It's never plotted out. I don't have this big board on my wall that says this goes here and that goes there and this happens here. And no, it's literally, I thought of something and I went, oh, let's put that there. It's just how it goes. So,
but
yeah,
tell me about the writing process though, because you have a certain amount of characters, you have a certain world, you know, and you were saying like historical, and we'll get into that too because I'm kind of curious, like how you go about research without getting lost into it. But when you're developing this, and you said that it's standalone, each book, but that it kind of carries through. Like how do you keep track of all of that when there's a larger story arc? Or I mean, like, are you that much of a planner, or are you a total pantser and you're like, yeah, that works, you know?
I hate to say it this way, but there's no better way to say it. It's all in my head. Like, these characters are living in my head. Like or you could say I live in their world. This is the world I would want to live in if I could pick my perfect world. So as I'm writing it, I'm living it. I'm seeing it in my head as a movie. So all I've got to do is write the screenplay, basically. And then I go back and in my edits, then I figure out that, hey, I understand this, but no one else is going to understand this. Or, wait, this was supposed to be from so-and-so's point of view, not the other one. So, yeah, I might, like I've got a thing on my wall over here, and I've written down each of the warriors as they go along in each book. Well, some of the books aren't figured out yet. So all I have is the warrior's name. I don't have what they look like. I don't have their twerks and their, you know, all of that. I don't have it because it comes to me eventually. Now, when I get it, oh yeah, I'll write it down because I'm like, does Gareth have blue eyes or brown eyes? I forget.
Yeah.
He has
kind of
brown eyes, I think.
Having been in that situation where, you know, like mid chapter or like somewhere later on in the book, you realize that they've changed. They've changed in your head. They've changed like how they look, maybe how they might react to something. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, fuck, I got to go back and edit all that other stuff. That's got to be frustrating.
Not usually, because as I'm growing, they're growing. And so sometimes it's hard to like pull myself out of the situation because that's how I would react. And I have to wait. This isn't me. This is Gareth or Hawk. This is Keith. This is Marcus. And I got to figure out how they would react. And remember that they're guys. They don't talk a lot. They just react. So that's another thing that I'm waiting for the review that says she can write male characters really well. Because I've seen the romance novels where the guy goes on and on and on and he's talking to this girl and it's like,
guys, like, lick it and
guys,
stick it.
don't do that. Yeah, like, he's not gonna say that. Like, for instance, my husband does not read, and I've said this before. He does not read, but he reads things like Garfield or Calvin and Hobbes. Okay, so that's what he does. So he read my book, and I was like, wait, what are you doing? I didn't even know he knew how to read a big book.
Right? Like, there's no pictures here.
This is not, and that's what he said. He's like, there's not enough pictures. I'm like, well, it's a romance novel, honey. So, and then he says, you know that scene where Hawk takes 2 guys' heads and he bashes them together? And I said, yeah. And he goes, more of that, less talking. It's a freaking romance novel. There has to be talking. And he's like, well, put less of it in there.
Right.
So that's where I get my ideas for my men, because they don't talk. They just get to the point, move on. They don't have a lot of thought.
Like they're supposed to do.
Right. You know, they just do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. So, but when it comes to then head hopping, do you prefer to write in the male POV or the female?
It depends on the situation. If let's say with my first book, it's Hawk and Cassidy. So if Cassidy has more to lose from the scene or more to gain, I will go with her. If it's Hawk that has more to lose or to gain, I'll go with him. And it's more fun because you see that internal struggle of, oh, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it. Or you see her going, oh my God, he's a jackass. How am I going to fix him? You know, so you get the internal struggle of the person with the most to lose or gain. And I learned from my publisher, the publisher does not like more than one point of view. So there are deleted scenes that you get in my newsletters that you don't get anywhere else.
Okay. You know, and that's a huge struggle for a lot of people who are writing. Whether you are a new writer or a veteran writer, is often staying in the point of view. And I have read several authors who will go from point of view to a different point of view, head hopping, sometimes in the middle of a paragraph, and it's really hard to read that. I don't mind so much if you go chapter to chapter. And some people
That's why Game of Thrones was awesome.
Right. And some people stay in the point of view of one, you know, the main character, and they do not deviate. What is the secret sauce to your book?
It's fast paced because I don't write boring shit. I hate boring shit. So it's not in my books. It's not going to be there. So if you're looking for something to slow down, my books are not it. And I think that comes from putting it away, reading it again. And part of my editing is reading. And so it's a book I wanted to read. So if I'm reading it, I'm like, this is boring, I take it out. Or I make it, I spice it up and I make it something you would want to read. So I think that's the secret sauce, is that it's not boring. You're never going to get to a point where you're like, oh, they really did just go on a horseback ride and that's all that happened. No.
Put you to the test, girl. I'm going to order me a book.
Go for it, because I'm telling you, you will not be able to put it down. If my husband can read it and not put it down, that was my ultimate test. When he was like, no, I'm reading. I'm like, oh, I have a picture of him sitting in his chair reading. I was like, oh, he knows how to read.
Right?
Oh, you'll love me because I leave reviews. Except for Mary.
Good. Yes.
I am so bad because I owe you at least 2 reviews. It's terrible.
Well,
but talk about that, McKayla. After what you were about to say, talk about the importance of a review for authors, especially on Amazon.
The reviews. Here's my thing. I'm a reader too. I don't care what the review says, because your opinion is not my opinion. Okay, so I don't care. However, Amazon cares for some reason. It doesn't matter what that review says. It can say, I didn't like this book because there was peanut butter sandwiches in it. It doesn't matter. It's literally, it doesn't matter. You could have 90 reviews that are all horrible, and Amazon is going to put you in their newsletter. If you have a certain amount of reviews, you get certain things. Like, I think it's 50 you get in their newsletter. At 100, you get sent out on the bi-weekly basis.
So any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, any publicity is good publicity. Even when you see these basketball stars or baseball stars and they've got bad publicity, you're still hearing their name. They're still getting their name out there. Because half of them, I didn't know who they were until they made it to the news. So, yeah, tell me what you thought of the book. Honest to God, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, because that can make
a little bit.
That can make or break an author, especially on Amazon, because it's like you can have the best book out there, but if it's not being shown, it's not being marketed effectively. And, a lot of creators, independent creators especially, are shit marketers.
Oh, yeah.
You have
Yeah.
been doing a pretty fabulous job because you are out there. You have your shows in the morning. You have your tidbits and
Going to
scribbles that you
cons and
do.
tables and shit.
You're
Like-
going to conventions and things like that. You're going to these weekend events.
Farmers markets.
Yeah, I mean, so
I
you
will
are
sell
putting
my
yourself
books
out there.
anywhere. I don't care.
Right, but
That's some
you,
good host shit there. You're doing awesome.
but a lot of people don't do that. What do
Oh, I
you
know.
think, in your opinion, is the biggest hurdle for them, and how have you overcome a lot of those things?
A lot of it is they're introverted, and for some reason, they have this idea that, well, it probably won't work, so why bother? Honest to God, I have a good friend, that her husband has just started his own little business making fishing lures. Okay. It seems like, and I could be completely wrong, but from the outside looking in, it seems like every time there's a hurdle, he's like, oh, I can't make it over that hurdle. I just won't do it. And he's not the only one. Like, it's not an individual thing. You see that with a lot of people. They're like, well, I can't, so I won't. Or I probably can't, so why bother? Or I might only sell 1 or 2 books, so why would I bother going?
Right.
Well, here's an idea. If it's close to home, go anyway. Because it's not about selling the books. It's about talking to the people. Maybe you'll get a person to subscribe to your newsletter. Maybe you'll get a person that says, oh, this would be a really great Christmas gift.
Or
There
just
you
mention
go.
later to someone else.
Right. Or they see you and they're like, I don't read your genre, because I've had this happen. I don't read your genre, but my friend does. Like, here's my card. Here's a bookmark. Here's some swag. Give it to her. Mm-hmm. And they, what? This is free? Because farmers markets, they don't expect to get anything free. Craft shows, they don't expect to get anything free. And the only reason I did craft shows was because my daughter was there doing her artwork. Mm-hmm. So I thought, well, she's there anyway, I'll go too. And I had a lot of people that were like, I don't read your genre. I read Westerns, or I read only comic books. Okay, fine. There's a comic book convention coming up next Saturday. Did you know about that? Mm-hmm. I was not a part of that comic book thing. I had something else I had to do. But my friends were. Bam, I just got my friends 6 people that walked in that door because I said, hey, did you know about this Comic-Con that's coming up? Mm-hmm. If it benefits my friends, it benefits me.
Right.
So that's why I don't get a lot of these that are like, well, I won't, because it probably won't benefit me. Yeah. That just blows my mind.
Or, the people who say, well, it's a lot of work, and what if I don't make any sales? Or what if I only sell 1 book? What if I only sell 1 book?
Well, that's where you run into the issue with most creatives do tend to be introverts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they are not going to be the ones that get out there. That's why they have all this fucking time to create, because they don't know how to socialize. Right.
Well, and that's... I experienced it
awesome McKayla here and there.
Yeah. And I tell you what, there's a reason my name is McKayla Jade on everything. It's not my real name. But McKayla Jade can go out and kick ass and take names. The real me? Oh, hell no. No. You'll find me on a fishing dock somewhere.
Amen. Right.
For some reason, I can't. Yeah. I mean, it's not me to do the McKayla Jade thing. The McKayla Jade thing, the author thing, is a whole separate thing. But when I do it, I can have fun with it. I can dress up. I can do whatever crazy kooky thing I want to do, because that's McKayla Jade. That's not me. If that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do. Figure out your way. Figure out your path, and just do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is another author friend of mine who goes to conventions and she cosplays her characters. Yeah. They're very unique, like paranormal, spooky characters. And she goes around with her business cards and flyers and things like that. A lot of times she doesn't have a table, but she can walk around as her character and people stop. They take pictures with her. They take a card and then they go and figure out who this crazy woman is, and that's how she's been that's how she's been selling books. But I love that you have that kind of separation of personality, like that split personality, because a lot of people don't realize that is a valuable tool in order to get out there and be in front of people. I mean, even doing this,
Right.
it's like, here we are, we're putting on our
Look at
face.
us. We're so fake right now.
Yeah, we're so fake.
Because if we were
I always
doing
said
real,
I would
I would
never
be
be on
trying.
camera.
It's like, hold on a
Meredith
second
would
while
be
I
talking
put on
about
my
touching
face.
ourselves.
It's like afterwards. But it's one of those things where the camera comes on, or you're in front of people, that you have to be there, and you get it in your head that that's going to happen, and all of a sudden it's just you find that strength, you find that energy, and then when nobody's looking, you're like, and taking that minute.
You need that minute, and that's fine. You can take that break. But when you're on, like my tidbit scribbles I just did tonight, I kind of ranted about the book signing that I was at, because there were so many people that they weren't on. It was like, why did you pay to be here? You're not here. You're just chilling.
Right.
Like, you could chill on the back porch. Like, what are you doing here? I don't get that part of it. I still have not figured that out.
Now, you just recently traveled west.
I did.
And
that was an awesome.
I've seen you. Yeah, I've seen you saying this is a dream come true. Tell us a little bit about the experience, not just at the convention that you went to.
What was the Dead Wildwoods?
But the
Wild Deadwood Reads, so
Wild
Deadwood,
Deadwood,
South Dakota.
Nice.
So Deadwood, South Dakota is not necessarily the place I wanted to go, but I wanted to go to South Dakota. I've always wanted to go west. I don't know why. The Welsh have a saying for it, and I can't remember how you pronounce it, but it's that yearning to be somewhere you've never been. Oh my God, do I have it. And so we're out in South Dakota, and we're seeing all the touristy sites and whatever. And nothing is really clicking. I'm like, okay, something's missing. So I'm close, but something is missing. And so then we went down to near where the Battle of Wounded Knee happened. And I know that I'm Native. I just haven't tracked down my roots yet, because a lot of my relatives were a little bit stubborn and didn't sign the documents they needed to sign. So there's no record of them after a certain year. So we get down towards
you're what in the Caucasia.
Yeah. So we get down towards the Battle of Wounded Knee, where that all took place and happened. And my radar starts going off. Like, this is where I need to be. This is where I was meant to be. And of course, if you know me, you know that I hunt. I live in the woods, right? Out there is not woods, it's desert. And we get out there and we're really close. We're like within 2 miles of Wounded Knee. And I start getting sick, but not sick like sick to my stomach. Like sick, like if I don't go find this thing, I'm going to regret it the rest of my life. So we start driving through the Badlands, and I don't know what it was, but it's the Badlands. There's somewhere in the Badlands that I am supposed to be. That's where I belong. Like, I've never felt more at home all my life. Every time we've ever taken a trip, even if it's to see family, about day 3, I want to go home. Well, this was day 5, and I was like, do we have to go? I don't want to go. So there's something out there about Deadwood and about South Dakota that draws me, that's where I'm supposed to be. So for me, that was bucket list. Check mark. Ta-da, done. But I will go back every single year. And I may narrow it down even more and figure out what the heck it is that I'm trying to find. So yeah,
that is really cool it's almost like a homing beacon, right?
It is. It's weird.
I had a very similar story with the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that connection to a place that you've never been to. I mean, for me, it's like metaphysical. It's like out in the universe and stuff like that. Because I'm a huge proponent of the law of the conservation of energy, right? That energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can pivot.
Yeah.
But and so it's just that to me is something which kind of lends to, I guess, this the you have a little bit of paranormal in your stories, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, does it come from like the imaginings, the wild imaginings? Is it like where does that come from?
It comes from the fact that all over this earth there are stories about people doing things that they shouldn't be able to do, or phenomenon that you're like, that's real, but it's not real. What? How can that be real? So that came from the paranormal aspect of my books is more like you're superhuman. There's something extra about you, but it's not that far-fetched that you can't believe it. There's just something extra. Like my main character, Cassidy, there's nothing outwardly different about her. She's just a person. But she can sense things. She can hear things. She can, she knows when something bad is going to happen. So it's not that she's abnormal. She's just different. And she's always known that. So it was just a natural transition to be like, okay, so then the hero of the story needs to have something happen to him.
Well, it kind of sounds like, you might be taking a little bit of your own, like how you react to things, right? Because I mean, we've been kind of following each other, and I hear you talking and stuff. And I think you're a bit of an empath as well. So like feeding off of those things and maybe tuning it up a couple notches for your books. That's also, I think, is a powerful tool when it comes to character development.
Oh, heck yeah. Because you can describe how they would feel. And my books I write in third person point of view, so that you're pulled in. Once you start reading, you are part of it and you feel it. Just as if Cassidy is scared, her heart's pounding. You're feeling it. You're not necessarily reading the book. All of my books have gone that way. And it's just, I guess, how I started writing. And so there wasn't much to tweak on that when I got with my critique partner. She's like, no, you got it. You got the deep, what they call a deep point of view writing style. And that's what draws everybody in. That's why no one can put it down when they pick it up.
So when you're writing, because everybody has a certain struggle that is specific to each writer, right? Some people aren't that great with dialogue. Some people aren't that great with descriptions and things like that. What would you say is your biggest struggle, and how do you overcome it?
Probably I see the story in my head and I write it down. I don't stop to think, wait, I'm telling instead of showing. I did a lot of telling instead of showing in my rough draft. And my critique partner has to come back to me constantly and be like, you're telling me here. You're telling me. And I can see it once she points it out. I'm like, oh, shit. And so I fix it. But when I first start writing it, I'm telling you the story. I'm not showing you what happened. So in my edits, it's heavily, when we first go through an edit, it's a heavy redo of showing instead of telling.
Yeah.
So maybe that's my outline, maybe, is my first draft, because I'm telling you the story.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I don't think that they realize when they're writing it that the huge difference it is between showing and telling. It's like that, the way we communicate with each other. It's like we're sitting here, we're having a conversation, we're actively listening, and we're participating. But I could sit here and I could monologue and I could talk at you. There's that different emotional connection. So without having that, you're going to lose your readers, and there isn't any reason to buy book 2 or 3 or 4, because it's like, and I think that's where a lot of authors will stumble, is that they don't realize, hey, I'm talking at you, I'm preaching at you, or whatever it is. And it's like I'm bonking you on the head with the story instead of inviting you in so that you fall in love with these characters.
I just got done with 400 pages of that.
Yeah. I read a story. She's not, the author herself is not in the BDSM world. Okay. But she tried to write a BDSM lifestyle story. Whoops. And it was billed as lifestyle. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And so I thought, okay, let me, this sounds interesting. The back of the book sounded good. And I know her personally. And I said, well, yeah, I'll read the book, no problem. And my book wasn't even out yet. I'm like, okay, I'll read this. And it's by the same publisher. And so I was like, all right. So I start reading this thing, and I'm like,
shit
okay,
show.
you're doing a real good job of explaining the lifestyle, but you're telling me a story. You're not letting me live it. The only part that she really let the reader get in and read it was when the girl was collared, and like she could feel and smell and the collar. She was describing the collar. That's like the only paragraph where you really got into it and you were like, okay, I get it. But out of this whole book, one freaking chapter or one paragraph.
Yeah.
And then to top it off, it was like, you researched this, didn't you? Oh, your research is showing. Oh, okay. I mean, and I hate to say it because I didn't like 50 Shades of Grey, but 50 Shades of Grey was better at explaining the lifestyle.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was really bad.
Yeah. And the only reason I bought those 3 books was to see if it really followed the lifestyle. And it did. It did a very good job of explaining the contract, explaining the lifestyle.
Dialogue, girl. Oh my God.
Yeah, like, oh, Jesus. Okay. Mother Mary.
No, we don't talk like that. No.
No. Oh, God. And then, of course, you can't explain it to people and be discreet. Like, you can't be like,
Gotta be raunchy. Gotta be raunchy.
Yeah, like, you can't be like, okay, listen, I live this day in and day out, so I know what I'm talking about. If you say that in the wrong chat room or the wrong Facebook thing, you're like, oh, shit, Grandma gonna see that.
My mama coming for you, McKayla.
Yeah. So like, okay, how do I say this? Not be a bitch and get my point across.
Yeah. That's really hard, but when it comes to taking critiques from people, I think as long as it's well-meaning, but at the same time, the person who's receiving it, you have to have a thicker skin. You cannot feel like everybody is attacking you because they have something to say, like oftentimes valid points to make your book better. What did it feel like for you the first time that you got a critique, or even like your first rejection letter? Oh, wait a minute. You didn't get a rejection letter.
I didn't get a rejection letter.
No,
you are an anomaly.
Girl,
but
okay, now, right to the top.
But here's the caveat to that. So the publisher is like, yes, I like it. Okay, now I found out through channels that there were 4 people that had to read that. I think it was like 5 pages I had to send. They had to read 5 pages. 4 people had to read it and say yes. Not kind of, not maybe. 4 people had to say yes before they decided they would tell me, yes, we want the rest of this book. And oh, by the way, here's your editor. Here's who you'll be working with. Okay. So I'm already got a big head. I'm like, wow. 4 people at a publishing house said yes. Okay. So this must be pretty good. So then it went 6 or 8 months and I hadn't heard anything. And so I type a little letter to the editor and I'm like, hey, have you, get into this? And she's like, oh yeah, I'll have it to you in a couple of days. 2 weeks go by. Nothing. Like, are you kidding me? Okay, listen, I know I'm new at this, but you said 2 days. I didn't say 2 days, you did. So I go to the head honcho above her and I said, I'm worried, like we're getting down to brass tacks here. You guys have had my books for 6 months. And I've heard bupkis. And then I hear it's going to be 2 days and I've got nothing. And so the head honcho says, I'll get back with you in 24 hours. I'll figure out what's going on. I'll get back to you in 24 hours. She did. She got back to me in 24 hours. 10 hours later, I got my manuscript back from the editor. And she said, I can't edit this because it's so horrible.
Wow.
What? I was like, come again? And then she didn't give me any advice on what was horrible. I'm like, okay, wait, what do you want? I can fix whatever it is that you don't want. What do you want? She wouldn't explain it. Okay, so then I learned what head hopping is, and I was doing a lot of it. And I learned what point of view was, and that they only want 2 points of view. And I had like 4, because I had like, there was a chapter of this person, and then a chapter of this person maybe, but mostly it was Hawk and Cassidy. So, okay, so I got with my critique partner. She's like, I'll walk you through this. We'll get it done. No problem. So we get it done. We send it back. And it's another like 2 or 3 months. I ain't heard shit. So I get with the head honcho again. And I'm like, hey, I've sent multiple emails. I cannot get a hold of my editor. What do? I don't know any of this. And head honcho says, give me 48 hours. She says, I'm headed out the door to a meeting. Give me 48 hours. 48 hours later, the head honcho gets back to me. And like just a few hours later, the editor gets back to me and she's sending it back. She's like, okay, I got it edited. No, she didn't. She had somebody else do it. Because when you upload it to Google Docs, it tells you who did it and when they did it. Mm-hmm. She had spent like 3 or 4 days on it total out of all these months. Because of course it's date and time stamped of when she made the corrections. And someone else from the company made corrections throughout the whole thing. Like, so my editor didn't touch it. Yeah. So then I said to my critique partner, who is also published through this house, I said, how do I get it so that they can't have book number 2? And she says, well, maybe you should send them a copy of your second manuscript that isn't maybe great. And they rejected it. So then I sent an email and I said, okay, you rejected it. Now you're done, right? You don't want the rest of the series. And they said, nope. I'm like, okay, bye.
Look at you being all clever, girl.
Like, oh, you don't want it? Shucks. Oh, man.
You just got it like 1,000 times sexier, McKayla.
That's awesome. I like being sexier. Yep. But the one thing that concerned me with the publisher, because, of course, I've had this book forever, right? I've had this for 20 years. There's parts of this book that are integral to the character development. And I kept asking, I'm like, okay, that one scene, that's okay, that's fine, it can stay. Because I know there's parameters you got to work it because you have to be politically correct in some things. And she said, no, that scene is integral to Hawk's development and to the scene of the book. I said, yes, they get it. All right. 2 days later, I get an email. Well, you got to take out this one part. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you got to take out this part because it's a little too graphic. What do you mean it's too graphic? And she's like, well, you can't have a guy holding his junk in his hand. Like,
why not? They do that all the time. They do that when they pee.
Yeah, I know. Well, they
do that at the grocery store. What are you talking about?
Right.
Mine
so
are just
this
like
was a
11
scene,
and 12, and they don't let go of them.
Oh, I know. It's ridiculous. But this was a scene where she's being tortured, and the guy torturing her has got his stuff in his hand. Well, so I toned it back, and I was like, okay, so he didn't have that, but he's still in the picture, and she's okay. So, of course, Hawk runs in and saves her, but not before there's damage, right? So they made me take out the part where, like he's holding his junk in his hand, and they let me leave the rest of the scene. This girl gets tortured, and they're okay with that, but they're not okay with him holding his junk in his hand. I'm like,
wow.
Have you seen the scenes that I write? I mean, have you seen the rest of the book? Because
no, but I want to.
I feel like this is mediocre compared to the other shit. So yeah, so when I got my rights back to characters, I was like, oh, here we go. And so then I got a review of the second one, Trust. And the review said something like, the love scenes are as hot as dragon's breath. Like, oh, nice. Well, that's hot. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm doing something right. I'm still waiting on the next review of Warrior's Worth.
Nice.
So we'll see. But each one gets a little bit steamier.
Well, I like that. Well, you know what? We're going to take a little bit of a break because I need to put up this card here. For anybody who is tuning in right now, if you go to Gemini Comics Supply, you can get a 10% discount on your Gemini mailers by using coupon code VOLT10. That is coupon code VOLT10, and that is courtesy of Indie Volt. Thank you, Varian Grant, for sharing that with us on RAGIN. And for anybody who is tuning in right now, we are simulcasting to Geek Insider, RAGIN AVC, of course. Hit the subscribe button. Indie Volt, Comics and More New Jersey, and we thank you for tuning in if you are watching either on the live stream or the replay. So, and right now we are sitting with McKayla Jade, romance author, and this is episode 21. All right, we're back. So, I am going to pull up your Amazon page, and maybe you can kind of give us a quick synopsis of the different books that you have here, because you've got 4. You did say that they are standalone, which is great because a lot of people, and again, I think it depends on um, where you are in the Amazon world of algorithms and stuff like that. To that one of your books might be doing better than the others and stuff like that. But we're gonna bring these up. I'm only seeing 3 titles,
right?
here.
Because the other one is a co-authored project, and my co-author has it on her page. But that's Linnea Fletcher. It's called Obsidian Hearts, and it will be a trilogy when it's done.
Very nice. Very nice. Mm-hmm. Now, have you thought about maybe putting these into like a box set and selling it that way?
I have, but I've got so many that are still being written. And as I go, people are like, "Hey, what about this character? Hey, what about that character?" And I've got story ideas for them. I just haven't gotten them written.
Right.
So
you're really developing this whole world.
Oh yeah. And then I thought about, well, let me just get like all the guys done. And then we'll have the guys box set and then the girls box set, because the girls are also warriors, because that's the hidden secret in Warrior Secret. When it first came out, everybody's like, you need an apostrophe in Warriors.
No, you don't. Not if it's plural.
No, it's plural. They are both warriors. Cassidy is just as much a warrior as Hawk is. The problem is with the back of Warrior Secret, that was the publisher book. The publisher did the blurb on the back, and no matter what I submitted, they were like, "No, we like ours better."
Oh,
okay, yeah. So yeah, I ran with it.
And there's something to be said about self-publishing back in like the late 90s, early 2000s and stuff like that. I mean, it was just, if you tried to self-publish, you were a junk writer, right? It was just like automatic. And so everybody strived to be in the big publishing houses. But the things have kind of turned around for indie authors, over this time period where it's more acceptable. Now, there are vanity presses, don't get me wrong, but self-publishing is a whole other animal. And so I understand that you had that experience with the publisher, and that you were waiting for your characters for that to be released back to you. How long was that process for you? And did it make you ever go like, I never want to do that again? Like, would you ever consider submitting to another publisher? Or are you good in this lane with indie publishing?
I have thought about it, because just for the upfront cost, because you have to pay for your cover or find really good friends. You have to, like, I don't have audiobooks yet because I have to pay to have audiobooks done. That's something that the publisher can do as well. But again, the profit margins there for me, they're not there. Like Warrior Secret, I have to pay $12.50 for, and as you can see, the paperback is $17.99. So if I pay $12.50 and I can sell it for $18, it shows that's not a real big profit margin.
Right.
And then Worth and Trust they run right about $10. I can get them for about $3. Well, that's a whole lot better profit margin. The problem is you got to come up with your cover. You got to come up with editing cost, because I don't care who you are, get someone else to edit. Because even as I branch out into editing, I don't edit my own stuff for the final time. I have 3 or 4 people edit just to make sure we've got everything.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about these. If somebody who is brand new to you were going to read this, what order would it be in? And again, just for anybody who's listening, that these are standalone. You can read them on their own merit. But of course, we love supporting our authors and our creative friends. So, if you like the book, maybe start at the first one and continue on with the series. I know that some of my favorites are out there, and so like which one? If somebody were to come to you and say, "Hey, McKayla Jade, which like I know that they're standalone, but I can't afford the series, because I'm a binge reader or whatever. Which one would you say read this one first? It'll definitely capture you."
Probably Worth, because it's my last one that I put out, and it's my best writing yet. And I'm hoping that every book that comes out will be my best writing yet.
Yeah.
Secret has got its merits because it was my first, and it does draw people in. It's a fast read, and you don't want to put it down. I get that. But Warrior's Worth right now is my favorite because it's the best writing I've ever done. So, and once you read Worth, you're going to say, oh, wow, these are interesting characters. Let me go back and grab the first one and the second one. Right. The only trouble you'll have is with the second one, I didn't do as good of a job at making it a standalone. There's a lot of questions in there if you haven't read the first one. So if you pick up Worth, if you're on a budget, pick up Worth. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so right now if you have that, it's free, or it's $2.99 for the ebook. So there's options. But yeah, you can start with Secret and get rolling on the story, but you're going to want to buy the other two books. So if you're on a budget, yeah, buy Worth.
Okay.
Because then you get a taste of it, and you can go back and get the others when you can afford it.
Right. Now, so with Elite Warrior, I wanted to kind of get into that really quickly. There are a lot of people who, they kind of work on a series, right? We've been talking to a lot of people who are into comic books. Michael Watson said he has like 100 books in mind. We've had others, they were like 50, and I'm like, that's a huge goal. I mean, sometimes when the goal is that huge, it's really hard to wrap your head around it, and sometimes we psych ourselves out. With your series here with the Elite Warriors, do you see this continuing on? Does it ever feel too big, or are you just kind of like, I'm just developing these stories as they come to mind, as my fans are approaching me and say, hey, what about this one?
It's all developing as the stories develop, more stories develop, if that makes sense. Because like in Worth, it's Gareth and Megan, so they're the two. It's Cassidy's first in command and Hawk's first in command. So the two seconds, now they get their story. You've read about them in Secret, you've read about them in Trust. Now they get their story. Well, as you've gone along, you've met other characters. In Worth, I put a character in there, and I don't have his backstory yet, but he was in the kitchen and he helped Megan. Okay. So that's all he was a secondary character. He was the cook in the kitchen and he was helping Megan in one scene. That's all he has is one scene. And one of my critique partners and beta readers came to me and said, you're going to have to write Michael's story, right? What? Wait a minute. What do you mean I'm going to have to write Michael's story? And they're like, the way he treated Megan was so sweet. You're going to get people that want his story. Like, okay, now I got to figure out what Michael is, and I got to figure out Michael's story. And so, yeah, as I'm going, all these different characters kind of pop out of the woodwork, and it's like, oh, that'd be a fun one, or I can twist that one, and that'd be fun. And yeah.
Now, with the creative process, do you stick with one story at a time, or are you kind of like the type who has multiple stories going at the same time?
I've got multiple stories like bouncing around in my head, but I will write, like, let's say it's just one scene, and that scene may not be the starting, may not be the opening, may not be the ending. It might be somewhere in the frickin' middle, and I don't even know where it fits, but it's a scene in that story. It'll go in a file folder, and when I'm ready for that story, I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to look at all those and go, oh, yeah, that was a great idea, because I forget. Because, like, oh, that's a great story.
Yeah, because there are a lot of times, for me personally, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, and it'll be either a title or it'll be some line of dialogue that it's repeating over and over and over again in my head. And I'm like, all right, I'm up. Let me write this down, because I really regret it when I don't. And oftentimes I've pulled over just to write down notes and stuff like that, and then just maybe even later go, what the hell was that about?
Does it ever happen in the shower?
Always in the shower, always when I'm driving.
Get an expo marker. If you have a laminate shower, the plastic, get an expo marker. Write it down on the wall. I don't know how many times my husband has walked in there and went, what the fuck does that mean?
Right?
Here, hang on, let me write it down, and then you can wipe it off. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, but there are a lot of times when I have the same thing. I have the voices in my head who are like, write me. And I'm like, no, I've got to finish this first. Otherwise, it's almost like this huge mess, Yes,
that's why it goes down in a notebook.
Without finding that focus.
To the side, and then you can focus on the story that you're on. Like I heard a song, and I've heard it thousands of times, but for some reason, this one time it clicked with me. And in the song, there's a line that my demons are real. Yeah, you probably know the song. I can't think of the title or artist of the song, but there's a line in it, my demons are real. And I thought, that's perfect. Keith needs to say that to Nicole. Mm-hmm. If you read my books, now you're going, who the heck is... Wait, I know Keith. I've seen Keith. Okay, now who's Nicole? Mm-hmm. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. In fact, in Worth, I've had people tell me that the very end of it kind of pulls them out because there's an appearance by someone that there's a reason she appears. So they're like, wait, where did she come from? And it's like, no, there's a reason.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the Shine Down song?
Yes.
Monsters.
Yes. Yeah. My demons are real. I thought that, and I've heard it thousands of times, but that one time it clicked.
Now, so when you are, when you're writing and you have some of those voices, do you ever like accidentally write them in to a book and it's like, it works? Or you're like, oh crap. Now you wait your turn.
No, I write them in. Yeah, there might be a scene or something they fit in or whatever. There's a scene in Trust or Worth. I think it's Worth. There's a scene where Dalton comes in, and you've seen Dalton before. You've met him before. He's one of the warriors, but he comes into another scene where you're like, oh damn, okay. You're like, yeah, he's got to get a story. Oh yeah.
Now, have you ever thought about writing in other genres?
Yes. I have my critique partner, and the one that I did Linnea Fletcher book with, Obsidian Hearts. She writes historical westerns. Mm-hmm. She had an idea for a whole series of books based off of rebel soldiers that were called the Immortal 600. So if you've ever researched the Civil War, during the Civil War, they were called the Immortal 600. And at first I was like, I think I've heard of this because I'm a history nut. And she's like, well, look them up. That's what I want to base our heroes off of. I'm like, oh, okay. So I looked it up. Sure as shoot, these guys are like the best of the best, and only because they just outlasted everybody else. And so she wants to give them their own series. I'm like, let's do it. So that's going to be historical Western, but not fantasy.
Right. Now, dark historical fantasy is often not put together because people are like, well, historical, how are you throwing fantasy in there? How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Think of it as like Merlin and his magic and curses and witches. So that's how I did that one. It was so as you read the books, you'll learn that Hawk is a shifter. He didn't know that. But he thinks he's cursed because he killed a witch. And as she died, she cursed him. So later you learn that maybe that's not true. So he struggles with all of that. He's like, wait, I was cursed. That's his whole life, he's, I'm cursed.
Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's a lie. No.
And so he's dealing with that. And yeah.
And then, do you ever see an end to this series and maybe moving on to something else besides the Elite Warriors?
I don't know, because I've always said I'm not going to write kids into my books. There's never going to be offspring, and now that's not true. Yeah. So, and that was a surprise to me. So maybe
don't you hate when they do that?
I know, right? Like, you messed up this whole story. I had this. So now there is, and now it's like, wait a minute. If they're immortal and they had a kid, how does that work? Do immortals have kids? And is the kid immortal? So I had to play with all those theories, and I think I've come up with the answer. And now that we're going, it's like, well, if you go back to the original, to Hawk's lineage, you'll find the answers. They're right there. I just didn't see them.
Yeah. Well, McKayla, we are closing in on the hour, and it went by really, really fast.
Really did. But what happened to your other rule?
Huh?
What happened to what?
We'll talk later.
We'll talk later. Okay. So for anybody who is tuning in, again, if you are tuning in from YouTube, we are simulcasting to Geek Insider, Indie Volt Radio, Comics and More in New Jersey, as well as RAGIN AVC, wherever it is that you're tuning in from. We appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell so that you know when we go live. I had one more question for you, McKayla, and that was about research. For a lot of people, research is like the bane of their existence, right? But for some other people like myself, I love research and I often get lost in it. And then, you do so much research because you know the depth of your character so well that you want to get all of those little nuances and little tidbits of information. Have you ever gotten so lost in it you're like, what the hell am I doing with this story?
No. But I think that comes from, I've always studied history. So I've always got tidbits rolling through my head. Like, well, I know that King Arthur was about this time. And I know that in Wales, they didn't really, King Arthur was supposed to be in Wales, sort of, kind of. So, like, I need to figure out where King Arthur came from or where he went to or where that was, because history buffs are going to nail me on this. So I didn't nail down a time. In my books, there is no time. It doesn't say this happened in 400 AD. This doesn't, no, there's no time. So this just happened whenever. Just figure it out. You don't need a time for the story to take place.
That's brilliant, because a lot of people, I think they get stuck in a timeline, and then it's all of those little details. It's like, well, that medicine didn't exist then, or that vehicle, or just even something as simple as clothing. Like if you wanted to express, like taking off the different layers of clothing and things.
I had to figure out how you would address a druid. How do you address a druid? Well, my critique partner, she also had done research, and she's like, everything I researched, there's nothing. There's nothing saying that this is how they were to be addressed. There's nothing saying that this was the proper way. Nothing. They were just druids. So people would address them as druid. Like, oh, okay, got it. And I moved on with the scene. Like, that's good enough for me, because I'm not nailing down any technical details. Like I said, I didn't write it in like King Henry's time or this time or that time where certain things had to happen, or the characters would have reacted to these things happening, like the Black Plague,
Right.
It's not even in there because there's no timeline.
Nice.
That's how I got around it.
That is really good. And the fact that you're like, hey, this is a world that I'm creating, and screw you, take it or leave it, because it's got the historical aspects, it's got the fantasy, it's got the paranormal and things like that, and it's hot. It's hot. So you want to make sure that you head over there to Amazon. Now, McKayla, you also have a website. Are your books available there?
I think so. I'm not very good at websites, so I think I have it set up correctly.
Go to Amazon, people. Go to Amazon.
Go to Amazon.
And your YouTube channel.
Yeah, or you can get me on YouTube. You can get me on Facebook. And if you want books signed, I will send them to you. No problem. Just let me know that you want a signed copy. It'll be the same price it is on Amazon.
Well, and people can approach you too because you have physical copies of your book. You know, obviously you're going to, conventions and farmers markets and things like that. So, yeah.
We won't get past the dog or the guns.
Right. I used to have a dog who would let anybody in, but if he didn't know you, you were not getting out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had one of those. Yep.
Yeah. Really good stuff.
But yeah, I'm easy to find. So.
Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our hour. We're going to put up the card here. McKayla Jade, it has been a pleasure to spend some RAGIN time with you. This is episode 21. Again, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. And if you go to the show notes, you will see her links. You will see the links to her website as well as her social media and the Amazon page. Make sure you give her some love. If you read the book, make sure you leave a review. It helps. McKayla, last words for you.
Find me on Amazon. Find me on Facebook. Join me on my YouTube channel. I need some more people.
And any words of wisdom?
Oh my God, don't listen to stupid people. If you get some advice that you're not sure of, go to somebody else and ask them their opinion.
Mm-hmm. Nita.
What?
Final words.
Buy her shit and throw my dudes.
All right. See you guys. Thank you for tuning in.